Hey guys, what's up? Producer engineer Alex Scott here with Consordini.com. Thank you so much for checking out another one of our tutorial videos. Today I want to take a look at something that is, I think, seldomly talked about, but I think is a really, really cool and critical part of learning how to mix hip hop and R&B, and that is mixing guitars. In particular, again, hip hop and R&B guitars. Now, a lot of guys, when you think of like hip hop, rap, R&B, guitar is not the first thing that comes to mind. It's not a super prevalent instrument in these genres. But if you listen to a lot of classic hip hop, you'll hear that there's actually quite a bit. There's a lot of different guitar layers that can show up in a lot of these hip hop tunes. And in particular, it's a lot of guitar stuff that is voiced from jazz and like really old school R&B. If you think of like Otis Redding and Wilson Pickett and guys like that who use this real kind of classic R&B guitar, a lot of hip hop producers these days and over the last 10, 20 years have had a tendency of sampling some of this classic like jazz and R&B guitar and using it in their beats. So I just want to take a quick look at a beat that I'm working on and show you guys. I have a couple of different guitar layers and just show you guys a few little tricks that I use to get it to sit in the mix and give you guys some cool ideas, because it is definitely a little bit different than mixing like rock guitars, right, where you want it to sound big and epic and in your face and you've got a lot of distortion and stuff. Hip-hop R&B guitars, because they're usually sampled from more of a jazz context, we treat them a little bit differently than we would if we were working on a rock tune. So the track that we're taking a look at is something that is currently in production. I'm working with an awesome producer, rapper, singer from the UK named Professor P. Big shout out to Professor P for letting us use this track and show you guys a little bit of what we're working on. Thank you very much, man. Really appreciate it. We're also going to have a guest rapper on this one, J.O. Felony of Gravediggers. We're really excited to have him on board for it. So this track will be coming at you as a finished product pretty soon here, hopefully. But yeah, I just wanted to take a look at some of these guitar layers and show you what I've got going on. So as you can see, we've got our edit window open here in Studio One, and we're going to be taking a look at, these are our guitar parts right here, but we're also going to be taking quite a bit of a look at our mix window here so I can show you guys a bit of what I've got going on. So it's pretty simple. Again, hip-hop is not, hip-hop guitars, R&B guitars in particular, you usually don't have a ton of layers. Again, it's not like rock, where you would have multiple rhythms and lead parts and all this kind of stuff. We usually use stuff that's a little bit simpler. So we really only have two main guitar elements. The first one is this little picked guitar pattern here, and I'll just go ahead and loop it out a little bit so we can so we have a bit more consistent signal to work with. So it's just a real simple kind of like funky picking riff, right? Now, we did record this here in the studio. It's my good friend and assistant producer, Callum Neeson, playing guitar. So it's, we didn't like sample it from an old jazz record or anything. It's just Callum playing. But I'm treating it like we sampled it from an old jazz record. So you can see we've just got a 1-bar loop here of it. And again, because of, we started with a pretty good tone on its own. If we take off our mixing effects, we're really not doing a ton to it, okay? It was recorded well, it sounds good, and it fits pretty well in the track already. So we're just doing a couple very, very basic things to it to help it stand out a little bit. And we are using Softube Console One on this. So I'll set it up here so this guy stays on screen so we can kind of look at what we're doing. But again, it sounds really good as it is. So all we're really doing is filtering out some of this low end, okay? So if we listen to that as it was originally recorded, there's a little bit of woofiness in there. There's a little bit of low end muddiness. So I'm just rolling that off using a high pass filter to just tighten it up a little bit and voice it a little bit higher so it's not getting in the way of any bass instruments or anything, right? We also have a tiny little dab of compression going on using our 1176 emulator just to give it a little bit of extra grit. We have a little bit of transformer saturation for a little bit of a different flavor of grit. And then we're using this sustain control here You can hear there's a little bit of spring reverb in there. So we're reducing the sustain, which is kind of taking out some of the middle silences where that reverb is ringing out to just tighten it up a little bit. Okay, so again, if we turn off console 1, still sounds okay. Again, we're not really doing much. We're just cleaning it up, tightening it up a little bit, and adding a little bit of extra texture. Really simple. It's just going to help it to sit in the track a little bit better. So that's our first layer of guitar, which is this funky kind of pick thing. And we're doing a lot of that specifically so that it becomes more of a rhythmic element. And you always want to be thinking about the other things that you've got going on in your track. So like, for example, we've got these percussion elements, right? We've got some shakers, tambourines, some different 16th note rhythm kind of topper stuff going on. And because we've treated the guitar more like a percussive instrument, right? Give it a little bit more pop, a little bit more grit, remove those low end things so that it almost becomes more like a percussion instrument. It sits more like a percussion instrument. And you can hear when you play it with the percussion, it's really locked in with that, and it's functioning almost like it's another percussion instrument, okay? And just backing up a little bit of that rhythm. So that's our first guitar element. Our second guitar element, and this is comprised of 2 different tracks, is this really slick kind of series of jazz chords. And we have that doubled in 2 different octaves. We've got a low octave. And then Callum played it again. If we take off our effects here, he played it again an octave up. That's the octave up, and here's the lower octave. And he did a great job of playing them exactly the same. So they combined to create this really cool texture. And we recorded them separately. It's 2 different takes of, one playing him playing up on the neck and one him playing lower on the neck. But you could very easily just double your guitar track if you're using a sample and pitch shift one an octave up to get a similar kind of a sound. So the first thing, anytime we get an element like this, is we'll look at the lower one first. We want to look at, kind of what we're doing, or what we need to do in terms of cleaning it up in the mix, okay? So we take a look at this here. It's pretty similar to the other one. We're rolling out some of that low end that's really not needed. We're compressing it just a little bit, and then we're gating it, okay, to remove any like amp hum or anything after he's done playing. But notice we're not taking anything off of the sustain, right? We're not reducing the sustain like we were in the picked one, because it's longer chords and we want those to ring out fully. We're just gating a little bit so that when he quits playing and maybe there's a little amp hum or background noise, that gets removed. We're also not adding any saturation or distortion of any kind because it's a cleaner sample. We want it to be, what it is. We don't want to distort it too much. And so we're going to use the exact same basic mix treatment on both of these. Actually, and that should be rolled off there as well. So just a little bit of gating. We're also taking a little bit off the top end here, using this high cut, which is just to dull the higher guitar part on its own sounded a little bit shrill. So if we listen, there was a little extra top end pop that I didn't really want in there. So I just dulled it very, very slightly. Now, the other thing that we're doing on that top part is whenever I'm mixing anything, I'm always thinking about the shape of it within the stereo image, the shape of it within the mix. And in this particular circumstance, what I wanted to do was have this top guitar part be really spread out around the lower part. So I'm using this H910 harmonizer from Eventide. And what that's basically doing is just spreading the guitar out. So if we listen to it on its own without, it's centered. But when we kick in that harmonizer, suddenly it's nice and wide. And when you hear them together, it makes this really nice textured thing. Now, the last thing that I wanted to do to help this part stand out is I added a little bit of delay, but only to the top part, so that it repeats on a quarter note basis, and we kind of get this ba-na, squeeze, 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 squeeze. And it's just a really nice rhythmic element. And then it kind of fades off. And it adds a really nice, almost kind of dreamy element to the whole track. So if we listen to all of our guitar layers together, it's nice, funky, even just on its own, because of that delay and because that pick part is so tight, it has a lot of groove and bounce all on its own. But then when you put it in the context of the full track, and you can hear those chords are being doubled by the bass instruments, and there's a piano part in there as well that's doing that gong, 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 gong thing. So they're serving to back those up, but then you can hear in those spaces in between, you hear that delay on the top end carry out. It's just really nice. You can hear it just back there real subtly in the background, just wow, 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 adding just a little bit of extra dreaminess and vibe to the whole thing. And, you know, again, this is not, you know, the guitars are not the star of the show here. In this track, it's namely that big rhythmic pattern, which is piano and bass, the beat, and ultimately it's all going to be centered around the rap, around the lyrics, right? And we don't want anything that's going to get in the way of that. But the guitars add a really nice extra texture that give it a little bit of a jazz edge, give it a little bit of a classic R&B edge. And because we haven't done anything too crazy with them, we're not distorting them or doing anything too wacky, you know, it just helps to create a vibe. It helps to kind of give context to the song and bring in some of these flavors, these jazz flavors, these classic R&B flavors that can make your track really unique and really stand out in the world of production. So yeah, that's kind of, you know, how I treat hip-hop guitars. But how do you guys treat hip-hop guitars or guitars in rap tunes? We would love to hear any ideas or comments you have, so stick those in the comment section down below. We love hearing from you guys, so yeah, do that. And again, my name is Alex Scott with Consordini.com. Thank you guys so much for watching another one of our tutorial videos. We really appreciate it, and we will see you in the next one.